We're now joined by Professor Dr. Matthew Adams, Assistant Professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology. Good to see you, Dr. Adams.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Listen, here's the deal. You've heard a lot of scholars, because we have a lot of higher ed partners, including NJIT, but you've never heard one who's a scholar and an expert on concrete. Dr. Adams is such a scholar. By the way, what is the difference between concrete and sustainable concrete?
You know, we make a lot of concrete that is already somewhat sustainable. It's just a matter of intention, making sure that we're not just designing for strength or making it last long term, but we're also designing it with reducing our impact on the environment in mind.
So this matters in our lives. Concrete matters, and the President Biden's infrastructure plan looks at concrete in a certain way as part of infrastructure. Talk about it.
Yeah, so concrete is everywhere. We walk on it, we live in it, we work in it. It's a huge part of our infrastructure. Concrete is actually the second most used material in the world after water. And so even though an individual unit of concrete is fairly sustainable compared to other types of building materials, we make so much of it that we end up having, concrete has about an 8% of the total carbon footprint from human-produced carbon in the world. So it has a huge impact on our climate change.
What kinds of policy changes / recommendations do you have, Dr. Adams, for how we utilize concrete in our lives? What changes should we be making?
So we can start policy by changing our procurement and making sure that when we write our construction documents, and those are the documents that tell us how strong things should be, how long they should last, that we also include requirements in those for reducing the carbon and trying to minimize that. So if you look right now in the New Jersey Senate and Assembly, there's a bill going through called the Low Embodied Carbon Concrete Leadership Act. It's also going through in New York that is trying to do this, trying to incentivize people using lower embodied carbon concrete.
Hold on one second. When we say people using it, are we mostly, Professor, talking about governments, say local governments, who have to make all kinds of decisions about what they build, what they don't build, how they build it, how they don't build it? But isn't this to incentivize local governments who hire contractors who are obviously using concrete to use the form of sustainable concrete that you're talking about that lessens the carbon footprint and apparently makes more sense? By the way, is it just as good?
It's just as good, if not better. Many of the things that we use to reduce the carbon footprint of concrete actually tend to make it more durable and stronger. It's just a matter of taking the time to know what we're actually putting in there and what the impacts are. You can make really great concrete with reduced carbon, or you can make really bad concrete with reduced carbon. It's all a design task.
So as the contractors out there, and we all hope that you continue to work and create great employment and make a difference, particularly with the infrastructure initiative moving forward as we are moving into summer 2021 as we take this program. But to what degree do you find that most contractors are sensitive to and aware of and care about what you're talking about?
I think most of them are aware of the fact that we need to reduce our carbon, but when I speak with contractors, they're always worried about cost, and any change in standard practice is seen as coming with a cost. And so this is where policy can help, because it can try to offset some of those costs up front. But realistically, the materials we use are not that much more expensive. We are already actively using them for other reasons in concrete. And so, and the concrete industry understands that if it's more expensive, nobody's going to buy it. So it either has to be way, way, way better or relatively the same price. So, these things aren't that much.
Professor, before I let you go, another time we'll talk in greater depth about the Biden infrastructure plan and its implications of it. But I have to ask you, why concrete for you? How did that happen? I got a few seconds left. Tell us how that happened.
So growing up, I really wanted to design amusement parks, not like the roller coaster itself, but I was really into the entry lanes, the queues that people wait in. I thought they were fascinating. I wanted to design the buildings and everything. So I went into civil engineering, and I had my first class on construction materials, and I learned about concrete, and it was just this fascinating material that everybody ignores.
You were hooked.
I was hooked right on.
Academic, scholarly love at first sight.
Exactly.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and when I see people and meet people like you who have a passion to do the work you're doing, first I want to know why and how, and then I want all of us to understand why it matters so much. So, Dr. Matthew Adams, Assistant Professor at New Jersey Institute of Technology, I want to thank you for joining us and sharing your story, because it matters to all of us. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Stay right there. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the New Jersey Education Association, Bank of America, Summit Health, Johnson & Johnson, MD Advantage Insurance Company, New Jersey Sharing Network, Fedway Associates, Inc., the Adler Aphasia Center, and by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today Network, and by BestOfNJ.com.
Hi, I'm Joe Roth. In New Jersey, there are nearly 4,000 residents in need of a life-saving organ transplant, and one person dies every 3 days waiting for this gift of life. One organ and tissue donor can save 8 lives and enhance the lives of over 75 people. You have the power to make a difference and give hope. For information or to become an organ and tissue donor, visit www.njsharingnetwork.org and be sure to talk with your family and friends about this life-saving decision.